Great talk. Guess what? Today I got Mitch Stephen from San Antonio, Texas on here. I'm so excited to have him on here. I mean, this man is a myth, the man, the legend. He's a serial real estate entrepreneur. Mitch, thanks so much for joining us, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, Rob. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, man, it's my pleasure to have you on. I was listening to some of your podcast earlier because you run a podcast as well, and I was inspired by some of the things you were saying in that podcast. But before we go into that, I want to give people a sense of who you are, what you've built, and then I want to kind of walk through the journey of what that looked like. Because, I know the journey of a real estate entrepreneur is sometimes filled with danger, right? And that's how we learn. And so I like to cover the good, the bad, and the ugly when I'm talking to guests on our podcast. And so give everybody a quick little sense of who you are and what your business looks like today, and then we'll deep dive on some of the questions I have.
All right. So it begins the story about a dumbass, me. And I was I was trying my hardest to find myself after high school. I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I have a tremendous work ethic, and I tried lots and lots and lots of different businesses, from striping to window tinting to selling knives and copiers. I mean, I did a lot of stuff. I have a stack of business cards about this thick that didn't work out. Mm-hmm. And then I stumbled into real estate, basically on accident. Bought a place that was seller financed to me, and I was making payments to the owner so that I could buy it. And through a chain of events, I ended up selling that condo, and I ended up selling another condo I'd bought. And I ended up with more money in the bank than I'd ever seen in my life. And it was more than I made, well over what I made in a year at my bartending job. I always had a bartending job at night so I could pursue the entrepreneurial effort of the month during the day. And I was trying to find my place. And I was 34 years old when I finally found real estate. It was because of that accidental purchase and sale where I made the money. The light bulb goes off, and I thought I ought to look into this. So I'm buying books like Nothing Down by Robert Allen and Carlton Sheets and Jack Miller and Jimmy Napier and Dave Delgado and all the guys from way, way, way back. I think a lot of them are not even with us anymore. And I started out buying houses, fixing them or not fixing them, and selling them with owner financing, and then selling the notes, usually within the same closing. I actually was specializing in triple closings. I would buy it. I would get it under contract. I would find someone to buy it with seller financing, and then I would send all that information about the house and the potential buyer and the terms and his credit report and all that stuff. I'd send it over to the note company. If the note company said they'd give me enough money for this note, if I created it, then I would create the note and sell the note at the same closing table. I would actually buy it, sell it on payments, and then sell the payments all in one closing. We called it a grand slam. I did it many, 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 many times. I was dealing in the lesser parts of San Antonio. I did buy about my first 100 houses when I did end up purchasing my own houses and not doing simultaneous closings. I purchased my first 100 houses on credit cards because 27 years ago in San Antonio, Texas, on the lesser parts of town, you could buy houses for 10, 12, 15,000, 18,000, 20,000. Back 27 years ago, if you had good credit and you applied for a credit card, I discovered very quickly that every single one of them would send you a card with all the maximum cash advance limits. And so I applied for 60 something credit cards and ended up with about 50 credit cards. And I would buy houses, like saying, give me 10 grand on this card and 10 grand on this card. And I go buy the house, give me 10 grand on this card, and I'm going to rehab the house. And so I got 30,000 in credit card debt. By the way, 0% interest introductory offer. So I have no cost of funds, no closing costs, no permission, no asking anybody. Just go to the deal, get my credit cards. Now, there were some cash advance fees sometimes, but they paled in comparison to what I was making, because I'd sell that house for $60,000 owner finance, and I'd sell the note for $55,000. So I net 25 grand. I did it 100 times in a row, at least, using credit cards. And then one day, Associates closed, and Associates was a division of Ford Motor Credit, where all the third-party notes ended up. They all ended up there. No matter who bought your note, it was ended up in a bundle, and it always ended up at Associates. And when they closed because of all the fraud, then my business stopped, and I couldn't sell the notes. I had 53 houses in my inventory at the time, and the note buying stopped overnight. We called it Black Tuesday.
Wow.
And I was forced. I said the first thing I got to do is I got to load these houses, because at the time I had some interest racking up, or it could be racking up as soon as the 6-month introductory rate ended. My interest rates were like 18%. The reason I could have 53 houses was because I didn't have to make any payments. Mm-hmm. It was just accruing. If there was any interest on that month, it was accruing. And so I didn't have any monthly holding costs. So I loaded everything, owner financed. I ended up with 50 houses times about, let's just say $3,000 a house average down payment at the time, because my houses, were 30 to 50 to 60,000. I had 150,000 cash in the bank, and then I had about 300 a month coming in, 15,000 a month coming in, and I asked myself, why the hell did I ever sell a note? Why the hell did I sell a note? I was addicted to that $25,000 big check, but I could have just kept the down payments to live on and just racked up the cash flow. So from that point on, about 2001, I quit selling notes. But I had to go back, and that's when I learned about private lending. And I had to, because when you deal with private lenders, you get to name your terms. Mm-hmm. And I was out there looking for 10, 15-year, 20-year money, at 8 or 9 or 10% or 12%. It didn't really matter. I was still going to make money. And I started finding the private money to do this, and it was wrappable. It was in my agreement that I had the right to sell the house on payments but not pay them off. So I would collect from my buyer every month the mortgage payment, and I'd pay out every month what I owed my private lender. And today, I've done that. I've bought a house every 4 to 5 days in or about my hometown of San Antonio for over 2 decades. Decades. That's awesome. And I created all these notes. Now I don't, notes expire. They get paid off. They get, refinanced, or people sell the house and the new loan buyer comes in and pays you off. So right now I'm collecting on about 300 notes, and I average about $500 a month positive cash flow. So if you do the math, that's about $150,000 a month positive cash flow, of which I am not a landlord. I am the bank. So if the air conditioner breaks, or the hot water heater breaks, or the roof leaks, it's not my house. I sold it to someone on payments. And so when the money comes in, it's my money. So that $150,000, anything short of a foreclosure, I don't have to give that money back to anybody. Wow. And that doesn't count the down payments I picked up selling all the houses. I collected over $1 million in cash up front to create these 300 notes. We're trying to get it to 500 notes. We've been trying forever, but every time we put 20 notes in, 15 notes pay off that month. And so it's really hard for us at 100 houses a year to break through 300. So we hover plus or minus 300, month in and month out.
And one of the concepts that you were sharing with me yesterday was this concept of, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's, you've got transactional, now money that occurs when you're wholesaling, fixing and flipping. And then you've got this kind of money that pays off over time in notes. But what you really want to do is you want to convert it to forever money. How did you explain that? Help explain that.
So I think Jack Bosch in his book, Forever Cash, put it really well. So I like to quote him all the time. In his book, Forever Cash, he talks about there's one-time cash events. That's one time, like a wholesale or a fix and flip. There's one purchase, one sale, one check, it's over. So that's one-time cash. Temporary cash is like what I do with the notes. I get 10 or 12 or 15,000 down. They owe me a positive cash flow of $500 a month every month for 30 years. $500 positive cash flow for 30 years is $180,000 they owe me out in the future. But it's temporary. Notes have expiration dates. Notes get paid off. Notes get refinanced, for all different kinds of reasons. So you can't really just sit there and live on a bundle of notes, because you'll look up one year and they'll all be paid off. Of course, you'll have a ton of money in the bank. Even when they pay you off early, they still owe you all that balance of the equity. In my office, we try to buy a house for X and seller finance it for 2X. That's the goal. Doesn't always work out quite that good, but that's the goal. And so the only way, the next step that you have to take if you want to get independent and work yourself out of a job is you have to take all the money that you make from the one-time cash events and the temporary cash events. As you're stacking up money in your account, you got to buy into a forever cash strategy, which would be apartment complexes, strip centers, commercial buildings, something that you rent. Now, I chose to buy a little mom and pop boat and mini storages around the lake where I live. I have 12 to 14 locations, depending on how you want to look at it, because some of the locations are contiguous. And I have 1,300 storage doors. In addition to my 300 more, I have 1,300 storage doors that owe me about $100 a month. So if you do that math, it's $130,000 a month. I started that business with 13 units in 1991. I've worked it up to 1,300 doors today in 2021, and the rents are now about $100 a month average per unit. And I have very little debt on that anymore because I've been doing it for 27 years. A lot of things have paid off.
Yeah, and what I love about it when you were describing it, it's like you're like, I'm a simple guy, right? It's got like one light bulb, one door, no toilets, right?
No carpet, no windows. It's hard to tear up, baby. In the foreclosure process in Texas for storages, if I'm Johnny on the spot with the notices and the late notices, I can auction that unit on the 32nd day they haven't paid me. Got it. Do you have to do that a lot? Well, usually we work something out, pay me half and get your stuff and get out by the end of the week, or just get out. I got people waiting for this. I don't like to hurt people, but when they just ignore me or lie to me or just, take advantage of. Yeah, just some of those people that just don't treat you right. I just go through the due process, Well, I remember hearing you say something, and I couldn't stop laughing when you said it. You said a lot of these, because I guess maybe it's around a lake or something, a lot of them people store their boats there. And you're like, people would rather lose anything else besides their boat, right? It's like one of those things. They're just not going to lose their boat. Well, the cool thing about boats these days are 80, 100, 150,000 boats, with the ski racks and the stereo systems. And I mean, they're just expensive. When I started, I was renting 10 by 25 boat stalls for little fishing boats. Today, I have to have 15 foot by 30 foot long by 15 feet tall, because these boats are bigger, and the turnaround room between the buildings has to be longer because the trucks got bigger that haul them. The extended cab 4-door pickup trucks are everywhere, long beds. And then the tongue on the trailer, and then the boat, and then the motor hanging off the back of the boat. You're talking about a 40-foot unit that has to be at least, 13.6 high is what the bridges are on the highways, the major highways. So I put them at 14 feet tall. And so the cool thing about these boats, though, they usually have a mortgage on the boat. And so if I overlock the boat and capture the boat or hold the boat as ransom, if the owner of the boat doesn't pay me, the bank has to pay me to repossess it. Interesting. Man, I get a free boat. I get to auction off a big boat. I have two tactical questions to ask you. Tactical question number one goes back to the notes, right? Are you putting in something into that notes that says that you can't be paid off in like a 5-year period or a 10-year period, or there's a prepayment penalty? No, because we're selling usually selling homes to homeowners.
Oh, got
That's
it.
my niche. That's what I like. They have the highest amount of give a shit. The homeowner. That's country for it. Like, they care a lot. And uh, it's against the law to have a prepayment penalty on a homestead.
Got it. Got it. Okay, and then with the storage units, are you building those? Or are you like at this point, are you building more, or are you like acquiring them?
What I did was, you'll find this interesting. One day, a little realtor called me and said they got these 13 units down at the lake that they want $8,000 for. It's right in the entrance of a major state park, right across the street from the entrance. And a lot of people put in the water there. So I bought that 13 units for $8,000 on my credit cards, leased it all up, collected all the payments and sent directly to the credit card, and I was paid off. I paid it off in a year and 4 months or something like that. And then I got to looking at it, another accident. I'm not smart enough to come up with these. I'm a very simple man. I recognize pain when it happens, and I try to orchestrate my business to avoid it as much as possible. And then when I recognize pleasure, I try to figure out how to make it happen more often. Well, the boat stalls are real pleasurable. They just paid, and there was no maintenance to speak of. So I called the realtor up and said, how many of these places are around this lake? And there was a lot of them. 50, 60, 80, 100, I don't remember. It's 27 years ago. But it was more than I could buy. So I went and I made 10 bundles. No, 12 bundles. I made 12 bundles, and I mailed like 80 people every 6 months. I would go to I was smart enough to know that if I had to do this every 6 months, I wouldn't do it. So I spent one period of time. I made a bundle to go out every 6 months for 6 years. And I made them all. I made them all and put them in my closet. And I bundled up every 6 month bundle. So every 6 months, I walk in my closet, I grab a bundle, I go to the post office. This was before forever stamps. I tell them to put the postage on it and mail them. Every 6 months, I mailed every mom and pop owner saying, if you ever decide to sell your units, would you please think of me and call me? I would like to consider buying them if you're ever interested. And one by one, the old men that ran them would die, and the surviving widow would want nothing to do with them. And I would go and talk to them, and then I'd find out what they're going to do with the money. And every single one of those widows seller financed me those properties at 15, 20 years at 10 or 12%. And then all we had to do was figure out what they needed some money for right now. Did they need a new car? What's that? 10,000? What do you need? Or some of them didn't want anything. I was able to tell some of them, I'm going to have to put 10,000 in repairs to these. Can I do that in lieu of a down payment? It's all fixing up your collateral. Anyways, I seller financed every single one of them. And then as they got straightened out, and as I matured as a businessman, I would go to the banks and get some real affordable money. And then I would go to the person who financed it and said, look, I got to pay you off. However, I'll continue to pay you 10% if you'll let me substitute some collateral. And then I would move their money and collateralize it by houses.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's so smart.
Because I told them, if I pay you off, you're going to have to pay tax on all this money. You've long since depreciated them out. They'd owned these properties for 20, 25 years. They had long since been depreciated down and out by their CPAs. And so if I paid them off, every bit of it, every ounce of it, they had to pay tax on. So I was able to explain that if I give you this lump sum, you're going to get hit with this tax bracket, and you're only going to be left with this much left. Or we can just move it, and I'll keep making payments to you on the same amortization. I'll just keep going.
And it's a win-win, right? They like that. They start relying on that check that's coming in every single month. I mean, it supplements Social Security. It's amazing.
Well,
right?
And then as always, when you carry a note, when someone carries a note for you, you'll get the call. I really need my money. Can you pay me early? And now we got another discount conversation going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I would buy the houses, end up buying a lot of them for even less because they would want a portion of their cash, a lump sum up front or something. And I would negotiate a discount in my balance.
Yeah. How do you keep track of all these notes? Do you have a software? Did you develop a software? I went online. I was like, man, this guy like has developed some different tech tools. Like he's a friggin' real estate entrepreneur, man, which is I absolutely love. So do you buy a software? How do you track it all? I guess is my question.
Um, early on, my wife, we kept track of everything on amortization schedules and stuff. We did it by hand. It was, but as we got bigger, we were forced to get, like Notesmith, and we were working with Notesmith, which is about a $2,500 program. Very kind of jicky, but it works, and Camille chimed in or something. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Mitch, you're coming back. Okay, you're back.
I can't hear you.
Okay. You're back now.
Test 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I cannot hear you.
Okay. Hang on. We're running into this again. Mitch.
It says you're in the show. Everyone can see and hear you, but I can't hear you. Why is that?
Okay. Hang on a second. Test. 1, 2, 3 test. 1, 2, 3 test. Can you hear me now? 1, 2, 3 test. 1, 2, 3 test. Hey, Mitch. 1, 2, 3 test.
Found the problem.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3 test.
Shoot.
I can hear you, buddy.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Mitch, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I don't know what's happening. We were going along fine.
Well, we're going good. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me still?
I can hear you, Mitch. Can you hear me?
I cannot hear you.
Well, so see if you log out. I'll send because we could splice this. Can you hear me now or no? Hello? Hello? Shoot. Hey, Mitch. We're going good.
I guess let me call back in.
That sounds good. Okay, come back in. You can leave, Mitch, and then come back in.
Test 1, 2, 3.
There you are. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you want to just keep going from where we're at?
Yep. We'll just keep going. Like you were talking about Notesmith and it being okay.
Okay. So eventually we bought like Notesmith, which was a $2,500 program, but it was a little jicky. But as we got bigger and bigger, the system we have now is called the mortgage office or TMO, and it's $25,000. It costs $5,000 to train the people on it, but it sends out all the notices. It does all the year-end accounting. It ties into QuickBooks. It's, the one thing you have to keep doing as your business gets bigger is you have to keep automating or finding the softwares or the apps or whatever that help streamline your business. It's a pain in the ass, and you try a lot of things that don't work sometimes, but you can't give up because you have to keep improving. I was just talking to someone the other day, said, you constantly have to watch the bottleneck in your operation. Where is it and what's causing it? And how do you open it back up? Because there's always one sticking point. It could be a person sitting in a certain chair. It could be, your software is just not helping you at the level you need it to now. You need a bigger, better software or something. So, and then I wish I'd have learned a long time ago, because having screwed up books and financials cost me a small fortune, because I couldn't deal with banks and I had to keep dealing with more expensive private money or hard money. And I could have refinanced out years and years and years ahead of time on a lot of different things when rates were really favorable, but I wasn't in order. Mm-hmm. One of the things that's easiest to sub out in your business is bookkeeping and collections. Mm-hmm. Do it from the very beginning. Use your time and your effort to go find houses. That's where you make money. You don't make money doing anything else. You make money writing contracts on houses for good prices. If you're doing anything else besides that, you got to figure out how to quit doing it.
Yeah, we learned that the hard way too. We were running a property management business, and we learned before we knew it, we had 300 assets under management. We were doing all the accounting ourselves. My wife wasn't a bookkeeper. Luckily, she had, all the escrows correctly. But man, trying to figure out her P&L, it cost us a small fortune to bring somebody back in and fix a lot of that stuff, right? And I tell everybody, pay the expert, right? Like, an expert's knowledge is worth their weight in gold, right? 100%.
Well, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to tell you, but you said you want to hear the ugly parts. The last 3.5 years, I spent $240,000 going back 4 years to straighten out what was all messed up. Every single transaction, about 100 transactions a year coming in, and then another 100 transactions going out, selling them. Took $240,000 to arrive at the conclusion that I need to spend $75,000 a year in bookkeeping and CPA to keep it that way, so that when the bank says I need a financial, I just said, okay, just call this guy. We want a loan. I'm going to put you in touch with my guy. Right now, we're interviewing a comptroller for $100,000 a year that he'll not only keep track, he'll keep the financials up to date monthly, so that I'm live in current monthly. It helps me know my business, every month, but also he'll prepare my taxes, so my CPA only has to just go over them, and then he'll work with us for tax strategy planning, which we've never been able to do because we were never in order, and we were always getting our tax bill, 3 hours before the deadline, and we run in to put a check in the, it's horrible. And that's one of my most embarrassing business moments. There's a lot of them, but that's at the top of the list. Cost me a fortune. God only knows how much it really cost me in lost opportunity.
It's interesting. I think that cautionary tale is so important. Like, we experience that too, but not to that amount, not to that. But, obviously your business was substantially larger than ours. That's when we started off. But, you know, it's a cautionary tale because people try to do this alone in their own vacuum without going to experts. And one of the things I love that you said before is you want to cut the learning curve for people, right? Like you don't want people to make the same mistakes that you made. It's one of the reasons why you do, I'm sure, coach and train and develop people, because you could take somebody, teach them what you learned in 1 year. I mean, what took you 10 years in 1 year or 2 months, you know? Have you quantified that at all? I mean, it's like,
Well, yeah. So you know, people say, "Well, I only have 3 houses. I don't need a." Yeah, you do. If you have a bookkeeper for 3 houses, they're only going to charge you for the hours it takes to work on 3 houses, and you get it. And if you get it straight from the beginning, it won't be very much, and your business has to acclimate to having that expense. Because unless you just want to stay at 1 or 2 or 3 houses all your life, then go ahead and do it yourself. You know, but it's all about what you can sub out. The easiest things to sub out are bookkeeping, collections, accounting, sales. You know, sub out everything you can early on from the beginning, because like I said, your time is spent talking to motivated sellers. That's where the rubber meets the road. Everything else is bullshit.
yeah, Mitch, actually, I heard you say this before and I loved it. I heard like the frustration in your voice when you were talking about it. You said, you know, it took you something like 5 or 6 or 7 times to be able to automate your business, to be able to scale out of your business, right? And it wasn't until you reached maximum frustration that it actually worked, right? Talk us through that, because I think that's a valuable lesson, right? You said, hey, you've seen this trend where either people have so much money that they say, I don't give a shit. Like, I've got so much money, I'm going to go back in and kind of fix my business, right? But that means that you got to slow everything way down. Or the other is you kind of fix it along as you go. So, you know,
well, most people don't fix it as they go. So, you know, because the business, once you get onto it, you're so into growing the business that it's not fun to look at this other crap. So you keep growing, and pretty soon your infrastructure sucks. It won't handle the load anymore. And it's almost everyone entrepreneur does it that way, because we're deal junkies, and we stay in the deal part of the side, and we hate office work and paperwork and bookkeeping, so we ignore it, and then it becomes a big problem. So what happened was, I'd been a one-man show for a long time. I had tried to, automate's not the right word, because you can't really automate it, but I tried to back myself out of the business so I could watch it run from afar. And I tried to do that 5 or 6 times during my career. So around 16, 17 years, I couldn't go anymore. I was exasperated. I was fried on both ends. I had done enough deals that it wasn't fun anymore, you know, and I, on top of that, I was burned out. So I decided I was going to put it all in a box and put it away. But I had $26 million worth of private money. These people have been with me for years. It took a lot of effort to get that. I was known all over town. Realtors knew me. I was going to stop all that 15 years worth of goodwill and building a name. I was going to put it in a box, close it up, and shut down shop. And I couldn't make myself do it, because I was making well over $1 million.
You're back, Mitch. You're back.
5, 4, 3.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I was making what? Yeah. So I was making well over $1 million a year, and I thought, damn it, like, can't I give up 500,000 or 600,000 to some key people and at least, suck 500,000 or 600,000 out of this a year while I watch it from afar, or while I vacation or tour the world or whatever it is I'm going to do. And it just didn't make any sense to throw it away, to put it on a shelf, to shut it down. So I said, I'm going to do it, but this time I'm going to do it different. First, this time I'm going to pay a person or people that have already done what I'm trying to do in this exact business. I'm going to find them. And I did find them. I found a mastermind. I ended up paying about $30,000 to be part of this mastermind for 1 year. Mm-hmm. I went with an open mind. I went with open arms. I went and said, as long as this makes sense to me, I'm going to drink this Kool-Aid all the way down to the bottom. I'm going to let them unwind me, and I'm going to allow them to wind me back up. I'm going to become passive in that sense of I'm going to become a student now. I'm going to shut my mouth, and I'm going to listen and let them fix me. And they did, but it took about 14 months, one chair at a time. Because if you got one good person, you could count on them. You go to the next chair, and then the other, one of those chairs wouldn't work out. You'd have to fire them. You had to go back again and back and forth until I had the right person in every chair. And I recognized then why I had failed the other 6 times. One is I didn't hire or get in the room with the right people, and that usually costs money, and I didn't want to pay that money. Mm-hmm. Second, I never had given myself permission not to do 100 houses a year. And so I was trying to fix a business with what was left over of me doing 100 houses a year, which there was nothing left. So the year that it finally got fixed, only did about 30 houses. And I wasn't even looking for those houses. Those houses walked in the door and laid down.
They just came. Yeah.
Yeah. And because I had taken a chunk of money and said, I'm not going to have, I'm not a chunk of money, but I had said to myself, this business ain't going to make a lot of money this year. I'm going to try to fix this business so I can walk out of it. And I'm willing to just accept half of what it used to make, because I'm willing to pay these employees really good so that I can get free. Well, what happened was I made more money than I ever made, even though I paid those employees decent or good in a lot of cases, because, and I'd heard it before, but Rob, sometimes we can read things or hear things or people can tell us, but we don't understand how hot that stove is until we put our fingers on it. I'm the kind of guy that will touch the stove twice with both hands. I wonder if it's this hand I wonder if it's the same for the other hand. I'm a slow learner, but I eventually get it. And the reason why was none of those people were as good at me at sales. None of those people were as good as me at acquisitions. None of those people were as good at me at all these different tasks. Well, the bookkeepers and all the paperwork people were. But I was so divided in my time and in my efforts that I couldn't be as good as them, because they only focused on one task. If they were selling houses, they were only selling houses. If they were acquiring houses, they were only acquiring houses. If they were running a rehab, they were running the rehab. And so I ended up, even though I have, $50,000 a month payroll now, I make more money than I did when I didn't have it.
Got it. Yeah.
And I'm so proud to tell you, I have not seen the last 400 houses I've bought, and I have not talked to nor met the last 400 people that bought my houses.
So what did you do? So you got back your time, right? You got back your time. So what do you do with this additional time?
I do the fun part. I socialize with wealthier, successful people. We go to dinners and basketball games or football games or whatever. And I make sure that there's enough money to fund every deal that walks in there, that it's long-term, wrappable, decent rate for me, something I can live with. And that's what I do. I've raised over $26 million. Right now, on the first of the month, in about 10 or 11 days, I'm going to have to write payments on $26 million that I have on the streets right now from private people, not banks, from private people, because I got freed up to do what I do best. I got a partner named Mike Powell. He's over 2 salespeople and 4 acquisition men. I'm responsible for him never having to worry where a dime comes to fund a deal. I take that. And because I can focus, I got really good. Because he's focused, not having to look for money and do a whole bunch of stuff. He's only concentrating on acquisitions and sales. He's got that team humming. like a train down a track. And then we both watch the infrastructure, the center of the office, you know, the admin people right in the middle, which is only 2 or 3 that tie everything together and orchestrate the flow. And so, and by the way, those admin people in the middle are the only ones on payroll. Everyone else is paid upon success when the money hits the table. So I don't pay my acquisition guys until we're acquiring a house, and I borrow the money to buy the house, and I borrow the money to pay their fee. You know, they're whatever. When there's a sales, the salesman brings somebody with a down payment. We make the sale. I'm making that salesman's commission payment to him out of the down payment that he brought. So because I've been in businesses where you have to run to meet payroll every Friday, even if it was a bad week or month, and it's torture. You can't get off that hamster wheel, and you can't shut it down. You have to keep running no matter what. And I swore I would never get in that position again.
I love that, Mitch. I think there's a lot of people probably listening to this and it's resonating like hardcore. I know it is for me, right? We've got a large payroll. We got multiple offices. And what I love is that it's your operation's a lean operation, but man, it sounds wildly profitable, right? Because you've kind of built up this reoccurring revenue that, that is so critical. That business has so much value. What was that?
Yeah, so it could be more profitable, but we would have less freedom. So you got to give up a little bit sometimes for the freedom. You know, I could make an extra $100,000, or I could be free. Well, I'd rather be free for the 100,000 because what I am making is more than enough. I can't eat or drink everything I make already. So, you know, your most valuable asset, everyone knows, is your time. Now, when you don't have any money, you'll sacrifice almost all your time trying to figure out how to get to the money. But once you get the money, you got to go back now and try to buy back your time. It's kind of, you know, I think it happens for every entrepreneur. You burn. You don't get any time. You're burning your candle at both ends. You're trying to get enough speed going down a runway to lift this plane off the ground. And to do that, you got to pedal really hard. But then you get into it and you get in flight and everything's going well. But now you've got everything centered around you and you have no time. So then you got to go back and buy back your time or figure out how to orchestrate everything a little different so now you can get your time back. Yeah. What is good as all the money in the world if you don't have your time?
I agree. It's the most important, asset that you have is your time. And it's funny, that analogy, right? You're running along the speedway to catch flight. You're hustling, you're grinding to make it happen. And then you're midair and you realize you got to rebuild a friggin' plane when you're in midair, right? Because what got you to where you are isn't going to get you to where you want to go. And you got to fix everything, right? And then to get back your time. But like you said, I think that is the journey that every entrepreneur is on, right? They got to learn how to make $1 first, and then they got to learn how to get back their time as they build that business, right? For sure. So now it sounds like you're on a mission to help people.
Yeah, and eventually, eventually, when you get back your time, most of us are deal junkies, or we're in it for the art of the business. And when you learn how to get your business to run without you, it's like, why would I ever retire? It'd be dumb. So then it starts to be a little bit more about, you have to have a higher reason to do this. You can't, I'm not doing it for the money anymore. And I know it sounds cliche. I know people that don't have the money really don't understand this or can't understand it. But at some point, you have enough that there has to be a higher reason to get up in the morning and do all this. And for me now, it's my big thing is I like, first and foremost, to build a legacy for my daughter, who is that central administrator, who has been with me for 27 years in the middle, watching every deal come in and watching every deal go out. So I want to make sure that she's well rewarded for her decades that she's been loyal to me.
That's awesome.
And then next, I want to help other people that were like little old lost Mitch 27 years ago that just like someone show me how to make some damn money so I can start living this life. I mean, someone help me. I'm willing to work, but I don't know what to do. Like, so my biggest thing is, Dale Ramsey does the primal scream when people get debt free, right? We ring the bell at my office when my students call me and say, I just quit my job today. I fired my boss today because I don't need them. I have enough coming in every month. I don't need to have a job. And the reason why that's so important to me, and the reasons why it's so important to anyone to get financially free, even at the most modest level, financially free doesn't mean rich. It just means you got more coming in than you got going out. When I got financially free, that meant $3,001 had to come in. And then I didn't need a job because that's what my job paid me. And that's what I've been living off of. So the minute I had that's not rich. Okay. But what it did for me was it freed up 2,600 hours a year that I didn't have to give to someone else's business, that I could focus on me and myself and my business and figure out, who am I supposed to be in this world? What is Mitch Stephen supposed to be? Where does he belong? What is he good at? What does he enjoy the most? How can he help the most people? And that 2,600 hours, you can't replace it. We all just got the same amount of hours a day.
Dude, I love that. Dude, you're inspiring me. You don't even know how you're inspiring me. And I know you're inspiring people that are going to be listening to this for sure, right? So if somebody wants to learn...
So like when I'm...
Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, if somebody wants to learn how to do this, they need a guide, right? Like, do they go to 1000houses.com? What advice would you give people, Mitch? I want to make sure you've been pouring into us. I want to make sure that I'm pouring back into you.
Okay, so look, I'm not a Millhouse. I'm not doing thousands of students. I'm not working the circuit, but there'll be a certain amount of people out there that I resonate with. The strategies that I'm the best at is the seller finance strategy, but I've done wholesaling subject to adverse possession. I've done it all, and I do it all, but it's all as a result trying to find the perfect owner finance property. And if I resonate with you, then I'm your guy. That's great, but we're going to talk first because I don't even want your money if I don't think I can help you. There's only got 3 levels. One has no access to me, just a digital course. The next one's a weekly phone call for $3,500 a year. Every Tuesday at 7:00 Central Standard Time, we get on the phone and I'll answer anybody's question. Me and Mike rotate every other Tuesday. You got the old man, me 60, already made it, don't need to do anything anymore. And then you got the young man, started at 25, he's 33, multimillionaire, but he's still building his fortune. So you got the old man's perspective and you got the young go-getter's perspective every other week. And our commitment is to stay on that call until every question's answered. And there's 500 hours of archived recorded Q&A calls if you ever want to listen to more or don't want to wait till Tuesday. On the highest level, one-on-one, you get my phone number for 6 months. Call me whenever you want. No time limits, 25 grand. But we're going to have a long conversation, maybe 45 minutes or an hour. If I don't think you're ready or I don't think I can help you in your market, I will not take your money. You couldn't give me your money. I'll tell you what I think. I may say, why don't we move down to that $3,500 a year level and let's prove this business to you. $25,000 is too much to see if this business is for you. If it's for you, let's get on the call once a week and let's make $25,000, make the business make the money. If I don't think your market's right for what you want to do, I'll tell you. If I don't think I'm right, I'll tell you. My thing is like my podcast, what I say on my podcast. I'm about to interview my 500th person at 1000houses.com podcast.
I love it.
I say, I'm just here to help people find their way to financial freedom. You pick me. If I'm your guy, great. If you don't pick me, pick somebody. But what you do is you get as much free as you can on the internet. You look at all the strategies. Then you got to pick a strategy and become an expert. Just one. Because if you're all over the place, you're not going to be worth a crap. You got to pick one and start drilling down, 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 down deep. And when you've gotten all the free stuff on that exact topic, and you're sure it's the strategy, then you got to hire someone who is currently doing that exact topic to the level that you want to be at. If they're doing one house or two houses a month and that's the level you want to be at, hire him. But if you want to do 50 houses a month, find a guy that's doing 50 a month, whatever the case is. And then pay that guy. Because here's the truth. And no one in the world has ever argued with me about it. You're either going to pay the street in mistakes and lost opportunity, or you're going to pay a pro, but the street is way more expensive and can actually devastate you. And there's no cheerleader for you. When you hire someone like me, I'm looking way out ahead of you going, like, I've been down that road. You know what's going to happen. About 3/4 a mile down this road, you're going to get slapped in the head with a tree branch because I know exactly where it hangs over the road. And it's there every time. I know. Ask me how I know. That's how this nose got like this,
I know, man. It's dude, I love that. You're going to pay one way or another, like either with the street or with a pro. And the street is way more expensive.
So I tell everyone, I tell everyone I graduated from La Calle U. How's your Spanish? La Calle means the street. Some people get it, some people don't.
La Calle.
The people that get it look at me and wink. I'm going La Calle U, La Calle University. I'm going to get a ring that says a college graduate looking ring that says La Calle U on it.
Dude, I love that.
And here's the thing about it. It's the most expensive college in the world. It will take everything you have if you let it, and it'll kick you down the street and spit on you, and no one will prop you up out there. You know what I mean? You get a coach, it's like, you got someone cheering you on, pulling you on, picking you up out of the dirt, dusting you off. Go, okay, that's not so bad. Let me show you how you fix this. Let's go over to the trainer. Let's get you greased up and get some tape on you, and let's get you back in the game. You know what I mean? La Calle U doesn't give a shit.
They don't. Yeah, it doesn't care. It's funny because my wife always says that she went to YTU University. YTU University. YouTube University. That's her university.
Oh, yeah.
YTU, right? She loves YouTube. Hey, well, Mitch, man, I appreciate your time
on that note, I just started a YouTube channel, 1000houses.com/YouTube. Go there. I'm delivering 10 minutes of pure content every weekday for a year.
Dude, I love that.
And so 5 days a week. And I'm really giving some content because I realize there are people out there who are never going to hire a coach, but there are also people out there that are going to recognize, man, this guy knows what he's talking about. Go there and see if I don't know what I'm talking about. And that's going to resonate with a handful of people. Maybe I take 10 one-on-one students a year. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Mm-hmm. I turn a lot down, say, go down. But so I'm not a Millhouse, and I'm just looking for those 10, maybe 12 a year. That's it.
Well, Mitch, we're going to put like all your URLs, all the contact information in the show notes. Man, you've given me a lot to think about, and I know that there's a lot of people on this call listening to this podcast that are going to get a lot of value out of this. So, man, I appreciate you so much, and you don't even know how much I appreciate you. So thank you so much for sharing with me today in your truck with your cowboy hat. Where are you? Are you in San Antonio right now? Are you headed to your ranch?
I'm really close to Bigfoot, Texas by my ranch, which is about 45 minutes south of San Antonio.
Awesome, man. I don't know if I told you this, but I lived in San Antonio for a short amount of time. My family's from San Antonio and Laredo, and my uncle owns a towing station in Laredo, and I went to Gardner High School in San Antonio when I was younger, and good times, man.
Wow, I wonder how close in proximity we've been before and didn't even know.
That's how it works, man. That's how the universe works. So, hey, Mitch, well, thanks for sharing time today, brother, and I'll talk to you real soon. We'll stay in touch.
Hey, thank you very much. I enjoy this a lot, and anytime, man. I enjoy the whole thing. I enjoy connecting with your audience, and I enjoy sharing.
Thanks, Mitch. Talk to you soon. Bye.